Hi, my name is Joe Wright, and welcome to Raised by Pride. I was raised in the 1980s by two women who loved me fiercely in a world that didn't always love them back. This is my way of honoring that love and exploring what it taught me about family, resilience, and the kind of courage that doesn't always make headlines. I want to start from the beginning, the story that started it all, the introduction to Raised by Pride. So this is the start of my journey to share my story. I'm a straight white male veteran. I've been married to the same woman for 33 years, and we have 3 grown children and 2 grandsons. I hold a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in business. Both of them I earned while serving in the United States Coast Guard. I joined the Coast Guard turning 20 just 6 days into boot camp. I rose from E1 to E9 in just 17 years and eventually retired as a Master Chief Petty Officer. Along the way, I commanded units, I served as an officer in charge of the busiest aids-to-navigation team in the Coast Guard, and ended my career as the Command Master Chief of the largest single unit enlisted workforce in the entire service. After retiring, I became a federal economist, and along the way, I led one of the most successful wrestling programs in eastern Pennsylvania. I coached athletes from kindergarten through high school. From the outside, my life probably looks familiar. It would be considered patriotic, stable, and traditional, maybe even typical. But beyond the resume is a story I've never told publicly until now. I wasn't raised in a typical household. I was raised by pride. For the first 7 years of my life, I lived with my mother, father, and older sister. We looked like what society calls a standard American family. But behind closed doors, it was something else entirely. My father was physically abusive. I saw and felt what that did to my mother. And I was assaulted by someone I was supposed to trust, someone who identified as straight. At 7 years old, my mother pulled me out of school under police escort, and we never went back to that life. We moved in with a woman named Sue, and for the next 6 years, I was raised by 2 women in a household filled with love, safety, and stability. At home, I had peace, and I was so very happy. But outside the home, I saw hate. I watched my moms and their friends face ridicule, threats, even violence. I saw gay women disowned by their families, and I saw gay men beaten in alleys. I learned early that being good, kind, or loving didn't guarantee you safety or happiness. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I wasn't gay, but I didn't fit into what the world told me was normal either. That confusion pulled me off track. I drifted. I fell in with the wrong crowd. I experimented with the wrong things. I dropped out of school, quit jobs. I struggled to find my place in a world that told me the only love I had ever known was wrong, and that the fear, pain, and abuse I had survived was somehow supposed to be normal. Eventually, I met someone who helped me believe in myself again, and slowly I began to rebuild. I joined the Coast Guard. I found structure and purpose. I worked hard. I succeeded. I became a husband and a father. I built a life. But I stayed quiet about the abuse. I was ashamed and unsure I even had the right to name it for what it was. I didn't talk about growing up in a queer household. I was afraid of rejection, hate, and what might follow if I opened that door. People accepted me for who I appeared to be, but I was never truly seen for where I came from. I'm telling these stories now because I know I'm not alone. I never was. But more than that, I'm telling them because everything I've become, a husband, a father, a veteran, a leader, was made possible by the love, safety, and stability I found in a home led by 2 women. That foundation shaped my character. It gave me the confidence to serve my country, to raise a family, and overcome the darkest parts of my past. I didn't succeed in spite of being raised in a gay household. I succeeded because of it. My moms had to be careful, for their safety, for their jobs, for me. So we kept it quiet. That was the message. Keep it a secret and you'll be safer. I understand why they made that choice, but I also hate what it taught me. It taught me that love had to be hidden, and that silence was the cost of survival. As much as I love my moms, I hate that I learned to keep quiet. I hate that I never had the guts to be more outspoken, more open, more of an advocate. But I can't keep quiet anymore. My silence doesn't help anyone, and it's time to stop worrying about what people might think. It's time to share. I'm telling these stories for myself, for my children, for my moms, for others like me, especially the ones who've never seen their stories told, for LGBTQ plus parents and their families trying to understand what their kids might feel, and for professionals who work with families and want to do better, for anyone who's ever assumed that love only looks one way. Sexual orientation never mattered. Love did. Safety did. Dignity did. I was raised by pride, and it's time to talk about what that really means. This is just the beginning. I'll be sharing stories about what it was like growing up in a queer household in the 1980s, the love I received, the hate I witnessed, the silence I learned, and the strength I carry. I'll talk about how it shaped my relationships, my career, my identity, and my path forward as a father, husband, and human being. Join me as I unpack what it means to be raised by pride and what that experience can teach all of us about love, family, and the power of finally speaking out. This is the story that started Raised by Pride. I'll be sharing more about what it was like growing up in the 1980s in a queer household, the love I received, the hate I witnessed, and the strength I carry with me today. If this story resonates with you, if it reminds you of your own family, if it helps you see another's family clearer, I hope you'll subscribe and join me on this journey. Thank you. My name is Joe Wright, and this is Raised by Pride.